Hello and welcome back. And in this video, we're going to be starting off our very first widget. So let's go ahead and create that. All right. So I have this project created. So before we start, I want to show you we have Xcode 12 beta 3. Okay. So we are working off of beta 3. Okay. And with that, let's go ahead and add a new widget. So to add a new widget to an existing project, and this project is basically simple, the simplest it can be. There's literally nothing in it. I simply did file new project, and that's about it. Okay. I mean, after that, you can just go ahead and create, like, from the template, select iOS app, and then click next, provide your information about the product, click next, and create that. That's about it. Okay, so we can go ahead and create our widget now. So go to file, new, and add a new target. Okay, now once you click on new target, there's going to be a whole bunch of things that are going to show up. There are several extensions that you can create. The one that we are interested in, and the newest member in this family, is widget extension. So we're going to select widget extension like here, and click next. Okay, then we're going to give our widget a name. So I'm going to name this simple widget. Okay, and you can name it whatever you want to. You might have, if first time when you're creating, you might have this include configuration intent selected. Leave it off or deselected. Basically, if it's like this, just unselect that one and leave it off because we're gonna see how to add this on our own later on in the videos. During the series, we're gonna see how we can include configuration intent and provide the configuration information. Okay. Next up is a project. You can have only one choice. If you have more than one project within your workspace, if it's a workspace, then you're gonna have a selection for that, but leave the default one. Or like, leave the main one where you're trying to add. Embed in, make sure this is gonna be there. Just make sure that it's actually embedded with the application, because widgets always ship with the app itself. Okay, with that, just click finish. There's going to be another dialog that's going to pop, and that's going to be about activating the widget. And we do want to activate the widget and create a scheme. So we're going to activate it, and it's going to create a scheme right here. And this scheme actually will allow us to directly run the widget, and it's going to add that widget right here. If it doesn't add it, then that's fine. We can actually go ahead and add widget traditional way, which tap hold and then click on plus sign on the home screen. So that's how you can do it. Okay, so with all this setup, you are ready to go. So you would have this new folder right here that says simple widget, the name that you gave, and it had its own info plist, its own assets, and its own simple widget file. Now this file has a whole bunch of things, and as you can see, this new warning started showing up, and this is actually pretty new. It started coming up with this beta release, and what Apple is trying to do is basically trying to get rid of this, or get away with this placeholder. So they're removing this placeholder view, and they're actually still trying to figure out, like, what to do. So for this course, we're gonna keep our placeholder view because like I said, things are not fully fleshed out for placeholder views, and they're still actively working on it. So we're gonna leave it as is, and we're gonna use and work with the warning until the next beta comes out, and hopefully they're gonna be much more decisive on what they want to do with the placeholder view. Okay, but let's go ahead and run this widget right as is, and this should show us a time. Okay, so this is actually launching on iPod Touch. We don't want iPod Touch, we want iPhone 11 Pro Max. So let's go ahead and launch on that. Okay, let's give it a minute, and it's basically gonna launch. And what this widget is gonna show is a simple time. So if you look at here, it's just a text entry of date, and the style is time. So it's only gonna show us time. There we go. So this is what you see. And if you remove this widget, so let me remove this, and you tap hold, click on plus, and go all the way to widget grid explore simple, you can see your widget being shown in 3 different family size. Okay, and you can click on add, and there we go, it adds that. And if I run it again, you can see the placeholder view being shown here, and it just shows placeholder view until the time actually comes. So okay, we try it one more time, and it's installing right now, so it's gonna take a minute or two. Okay, yeah, still working through that. Okay, anyways, like I said, like, you know, things are still not 100%. Okay, yeah, that actually happens where you would see Xcode not being able to connect to your simulator sometimes, and you're gonna see that error is pretty consistent on the beta release. I've seen this since beta 1. Okay, anyways, let's go ahead and get started with our widget development. And what we're gonna do is first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna remove everything. We don't need all these. Okay, and we're gonna start from scratch. Okay, so first thing I like to do is basically arrange my code. So I'm gonna create a new group without folder, and this one is gonna be called views. There might be some models involved, so let's create models, and let me create app as well, where we're gonna put all these app related things in here. And I'm gonna create one more that's gonna be widget. So all widget related stuff is gonna go inside, and I'm gonna put simple widget inside that. Okay, so let me put this at top. Okay, awesome. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and create the first thing. So the first thing that you need is basically a model for your widget. Okay, and the widget that we're gonna create is again gonna be it's gonna be a time, but we're gonna actually display it a little bit differently. Okay, we're gonna display the date. So we're gonna display sort of a calendar with date and month. Okay, and so we're gonna get the day, date, and month, these 3 shown in the calendar. Okay, so first thing we're gonna need is an entry, so something called timeline entry. Okay, so we will create a timeline entry class. So let me save this, and we're gonna create a new file, and this is gonna be a Swift file, and we're gonna simply say this one is going to be called simple widget entry. Okay, so this is sort of your model. Okay, I mean, this can have like another model if your object become complex, which is gonna be in the next widget we're gonna create a little bit more complex widget where it's gonna have its own model. But for this widget we're not gonna need much because we are still trying to, like, you know, learn about basics of widget. Okay, so you're gonna name it, make sure like it's your simple widget where it's going. Group, make sure it's actually selected by default as like, you know, whichever folder you're putting in. And then you have target selection as simple widget extension. Okay, so go ahead and create that right there. and then import, we're going to change it to widget kit. Okay, and we also going to import SwiftUI. All right, now we're going to create our struct. You're going to call this one simple widget entry timeline entry. Okay, so this is basically going to be the content provider for your widget, and we only need date for now, so we're going to say let date is of type date. Okay, so that's going to be your model. Next thing you're going to need is basically so let's create a timeline. So I'm going to go and create a new file, and we're going to call this a timeline. And the way widget works is basically it creates these timelines where regular updates happen. So it's sort of like Apple actually described in their WWDC 20 demo, is sort of like watch how watchOS schedules its updates. So it basically schedules its updates on timeline, where, like, you define your entries to be 1, 2, and 3. This is time, and when first timeline expires, second entry becomes active. When second entry expires, third entry becomes active, and then once third entry is about to expire, that's when update is called and more timelines are created. And you can create as many entities as you want for this timeline, and basically they're all gonna execute one after other, and when they are expired, based on the policy that you have defined for the execution, it can actually update the timeline depending upon that. Okay, so that same timeline sort of concept applies here as well. And so we're gonna say import widget kit, and we're gonna actually create that timeline here. Okay, so to create timeline, it's very simple. We're gonna name this struct as simple widget timeline, and this is gonna be timeline provider. Okay, and timeline provider takes an entry type, so it's a type alias entry type. Okay, and this is your entry that you have created. So simple widget entry, that's going to be the type. Now next, it requires two functions to be implemented. First one is snapshot. Okay, and this snapshot is basically this guy right here. When you open the widget gallery, you see these values, right? These are called snapshot. These are this data can be fetched from server. This can be a real data, or you can actually create a fake entry, like batteries does, I think. Let me see if batteries has. Yeah, so there you go. You see this fake keyboard and all these things. This can be like, something that you can create. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna create a fake entry for us. So I'm gonna just dismiss all this and click done. And for snapshot, we're gonna simply say let entry is equal to simple widget entry, and this one takes date. So it should actually, yeah, there we go. And we're gonna supply the current date like so. Okay, and now we're gonna simply call completion with entry. Okay, so this is basically gonna create that snapshot for us. Next up is basically the actual timeline, and we're gonna choose the timeline with context and completion. I mean, if you look at it, both of them are same. I don't know, it could be a bug. But var entries. So this is where, remember we talked about those whole bunch of entries in the timeline, each entry providing one instance, and you can have, like, basically these entries, you can have them line up. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna we're gonna create a collection of entries. So simple widget entry collection, and we're gonna initialize with empty array, and then we're gonna put a for loop. So before for loop, let's get the current date. So current date, and this is gonna be date, like so. So what we're gonna do is now we're gonna generate the timeline. Okay, so to generate the timeline, you can simply say day offset, and it's just a loop of, like, 7 days of timeline that we are creating, timeline entries, and we're gonna simply say first compute entry date. Okay, entry date is gonna be calendar, so we're gonna choose the calendar dot current dot date, and we need the overload that actually takes by adding value and 2. Okay, so let's look for by adding value and 2. Okay, and we're gonna say we want to add value is by adding day, how much value? 1, so 1 day to each value, right? Or you can say day offset. So what we want to do is we want to create entry date from today. So today, next day, so 1, 2, 3, like that. Okay, so 0th day is gonna start today. Okay, and then we're gonna say current date. Right, I'm gonna force unwrap this. That is fine. That value is never gonna be nil, but if you feel unsafe about it, go ahead and unwrap it with if let or something. Then we're gonna create our entry, and entry is gonna be of type simple widget entry once again. Okay, and this takes date, and we're gonna provide this as entry date that we just created right here. Okay, so that is our entry that is created. Now we're gonna append this to our entries. So entries.append entry, like that. Okay, so this collection is gonna have basically collection of all these entries for 7-day worth of timeline that is created for us, and then we're gonna simply create timeline with help of timeline, and we're gonna supply entry, and entry is gonna be entries. It takes a collection, so we're gonna say entries, and this is a policy that we are talking about. So when your entries are about to expire, that's when this policy is going to get triggered. So we are going to say when you reach to the last timeline, right? So once again, this is your timeline, right? And your entries are like passing, and your timelines are expiring, or your entries are expiring in the timeline, and then you reach the last one. When this is about to expire, that's when your timeline is gonna get filled with 7 more entries, like that. Okay, so you are simply gonna say at end right here. Okay, and then we can say completion, and this is where we're gonna supply the timeline back. So this is your timeline provider. Okay, and then let's go ahead and create our main entry point for the widget, so we know what all components we're gonna need. So go back to the simple widget.swift file, and we're gonna import widget kit, import Swift UI, and we're gonna decorate this function or this struct with main. Okay, this is going to be the main entry point for your widget. Now, one thing I'll show you in a minute that you have to keep in mind is the membership. So let me get this simple widget created, widget, and I'm gonna create kind. So this is simply a string, and you can put kind as a struct name, and then body. Okay, and body is of type some widget configuration. Now this takes two types of configuration. There's intent configuration, there is static configuration. So we are interested in static configuration. Okay, and this provides, so as you can see, like, you know, there's this deprecated method. We're going to use this one because Apple is still working on this new one that's coming up. Okay, so I saw some of the issues like, you know, when I was working with the other one, so that's why I would suggest and recommend that you work on the deprecated one until the new beta comes out. So this is basically the timeline provider that you created. So you're going to simply say simple for the provider. It's going to be simple timeline, simple widget timeline. There we go. Okay, now the placeholder view we need to create, in entry we need to create. Those two things we need to create. Okay, so we're going to create those next, but before that, let me show you something. So one thing that you need to keep in mind is that because you have this this file that has main in it, and you have this this file that is actually the simple app file in new project is called, it's also decorated with main. These two cannot be like this. So this file cannot have, like, you know, target membership for both, and this file, the main entry files, cannot have target membership for both. What's going to happen is, if you leave that checked, or by default if it gets checked like by mistake, then what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing some compiler linker errors that there's a duplicate main. It does not tell you where it is. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but you need to be sure that wherever your main is, your basically target membership is selected to that particular target area only. So this simple widget is basically the main launch or entry point for widget, so make sure it has target membership for widget extension only. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and create our next item, which is the placeholder view. So placeholder view is little simple. I mean, it's very simple. We just create a new file and we select SwiftUI view template here, and we're gonna call this one placeholder view, like that. And now here we are simply going to say some placeholder, just say placeholder. And this is a new addition that Apple has actually added. It's called redacted, and redacted has this placeholder, so it's gonna show a redacted line until your view loads. Okay, so if it's loading, then it's gonna show this redacted line for the placeholder. Okay, so that's actually gonna create that. So that's our placeholder. So let's go ahead and provide that placeholder view like that. Now next thing we need is content. Now content is actually given for the entry, so entry is going to be coming from the timeline. So this is where the widget kit is going to basically provide you a timeline, right, an entry for the timeline that your view can display. Okay, so what you need to do is go to your view, create a new file, and this is where we're going to create our view for our timeline, or sorry, an entry. Too many timelines. Simple widget entry view. Okay, now for the entry view, it's going to be simple SwiftUI view. So we are going to be expecting our widget to provide the entry. So we're going to say let entry simple widget entry. Okay, and we have that information now, so we can start designing our view. So we're going to create a simple Z stack here, and in Z stack we're going to have a V stack with some spacing. Okay, and it's gonna have a text which is going to be showing month. So we're gonna create a helper function for that. Let's go ahead and just type month for now. Let's make it bold and give it a foreground color of white. Then add some padding to it, and padding is basically going to be on the horizontal side with 20 points, and background with rectangle, color dot red. Okay, then we're gonna have day, so we're gonna show the day like that, and just leave everything default. Next text is gonna be the date, and we're gonna give it a font large title like so. Okay, for the whole thing we're gonna give it a background, and this background is gonna be a rectangle with fill, and we're gonna create a color. So I'm gonna actually paste a color literal. So let me see if I can get that. Okay, so let me get the color literal, and it's going to be this one right here, and this is actually slight. So this is the hex code EB for this color. Okay, and it's slightly sort of like off-white, so I'm going to remove the preview section, and next we're going to add some padding, about 20 points of padding. Let's give a circle clip shape circle. Okay, and then let's add some shadow, and we're going to use the other overload. Color is going to be gray, radius is going to be 5, x is going to be 5, and y is going to be 5. Okay, and we want to make edges ignore safe area dot all. All right, now let's create some functions to populate these month, date, and day values. So we're gonna say private func get day, this returns a string, all right, and we're gonna simply return date formatter dot string from entry dot date. Now you can actually create just one function to return all these three based on switch statement, but to keep things simple, I'm gonna copy and paste, and basically gonna return 3 different values. So date, and this is gonna be month. Okay, and we are simply going to say get month, get day, and get date. Okay, so that is our entire view that we have created. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our widget, and here we are simply going to say we have an entry. We're gonna call single or simple widget entry view, and we're going to supply our entry that's been passed by the configuration to us. Okay, so what that that's going to do is whatever your view has given, your static configuration has given, that's been supplied, and this data we're going to use to basically populate our view right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this and see if we've got everything, and ignore this warning for now, like I said, and let's go ahead and try this widget out and see what we get. So we have our placeholder view, I think. So one thing that you're gonna notice, there's another bug that the placeholder view does not update sometimes. So what it does is basically it does not show you a placeholder. It still will show you like the old placeholder view, and that actually is something that I figured, like, you know, sometime if you remove everything, so let's say if you remove your app and then come back, you're gonna notice that it's actually gonna, sometime it fixes that. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if it fixes this issue. Okay, so let me go ahead and relaunch, and no, it's still cached. So one more thing I found is, like, you know, you might have to reset your content, and then it'll actually reflect the changes. But yeah, anyways, we have a little bit issue. Our text is a little bit more bold than we want. Padding, maybe can reduce this, the padding around it, and yeah, okay. And anyways, that's the layout issue. We can figure it out. Let me show you what the other widget families look like. So let's load this, and I'll actually hold and show you all the other widget families. Okay, so our widget is not showing up. That's okay. All right, I'm gonna actually leave this 20. I'm not gonna try to, maybe. Okay, let's go and run this again. All right, so it's building now. Okay, and we have our widget loading, still waiting. Okay, as you can guess, like, you know, it's running a little bit slow, but yeah, there we go. And now if I hold and add widget, there we go, it's now showing up. So I'm gonna click on it, and these are our other widget families, as you can see, right? So if you add, although it looks like, you know, there's a lot of space that's been wasted here, where, like, you know, you're just showing one cell, but that's okay. Like, you know, we can work with that and create new widgets that are going to show you more details, stuff like that. And you're also going to learn how you can control your widgets to not show, so let's say if you just want to show, if let's say you built a widget just for this single purpose, like small area, then you only show it for a small area. You don't show it for medium or large for that particular widget. Okay, so you can control that too, and that's actually going to be something that we're going to be covering very soon. Okay, but congratulations, you have created your very first widget, and yeah, you learned, hopefully you learned a thing or two along the way. So in the next video, we're gonna create another widget and explore a bit more about our widget kit. So we are going to basically try to create a weather widget, and in the weather widget, what we're going to do is we are going to actually call different APIs, external APIs, and you're gonna see how you can make networking calls and everything in that widget to download data and display on your widget, and how it can refresh automatically based on different times that he can provide. He can schedule those updates and stuff like that as well. Okay, so that's going to be coming up next. Okay, so thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in next video. Thank you.